everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making this version of the spiral rope stitch. You can make it into a necklace, you can make it into a bracelet, and learn how to graduate it and progress it along the way using a variety of beads. Remember, we have them listed before in the little video description, as well as below me near that like button. There are links that you can purchase from us online at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. Gather up your materials and join me in making this graduated spiral rope necklace. So I'm beginning the spiral rope very, very easily. This is nothing more than spiral rope. It's just that graduated version, going from a smaller bead to a larger bead. So it's just your basic pattern of your spiral rope. We have another spiral rope video if you want to check that out too. But I have, to start out, 2 colors of 11-0s and 1 color of 8-0. That light bronze in the 11, and then that silver lined dark coral in the Miyuki 11 as well, and the 8-0 in the opaque, the Duracoat opaque Eucalyptus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that light bronze color to be down the center of my piece. And I'm going to begin by adding on 5 of my 11-0 seed beads. And these 11-0s again are in that light bronze color that you're looking at. And that light bronze color of 11-0 is going to drop down next to a stop bead that I've put on. I've placed the stop bead onto the actual thread and left about 10 inches after the thread. What that's going to leave then is a way for me to go back and to attach the clasp to the end of the piece. The spiral rope now is going to be done at the original start with an 11, 8, and 11. And I'm doing this with the alternate color. So I'm doing with that silver lined color. And I'm going to go back through my last 3 11-0s in that light bronze color. So kind of circling around almost, going and taking my needle, skipping the first 2 seed beads and going through 3, 4, and 5. That's going to pull those seed beads off to the side there of that spiral rope. Next thing I'm going to do, add 1 of my bronze, and then you're going to add your 3, your 11, 8, 11 in the alternative color. Go ahead and let that drop down, and you're going to go again through those last 3 bronze beads. So it's going to be the last 2 beads, 4 and 5, and then also that other bead, that 6th bead that you put on that needle. So you're always sewing through those last 3 beads. So you can see that it's kind of sitting aside and kind of apart from one another. When it's sitting aside and apart like this, you want to make sure that you kind of start to have the effect that it's getting spiraled and then it's stacking up. For these first 2, it doesn't matter, but then as you add on, you add your 1 base color, which is going to be that bronze, and then your series of 3. Let those drop down to your core, which the core is that light bronze. And then you're going to make sure that you're going and sewing in, kind of adding so that it's stepping up. I'm going to turn and push those 2 beads to sit together. And then I'm going to step up through, again, the last 3 of my core color, which is going to be those 2 light bronze that were already there, and then also the 1 light bronze that I just added. So as I go through these and kind of step up here, and bring my thread and needle out, you just want to make sure that your last spiral piece sits behind the one before it, because you don't want it to sit back here and then add your next one and have them kind of be off a little bit. You want to make sure that it's constantly growing and you're constantly adding it to it. So again, 1 11-0 in that bronze color, 11, 8, 11. Let those drop down, and I will show you how to add thread during this because it is one of those that you are definitely going to need to add thread. And then you're going to sew through the last 3 core colors, which are 2 bronze that are already there and 1 that you just added. Bring the needle out, and that pushes that 11, 8, 11 combo off to the side. Again, making sure that it's growing as you're adding them. You can see that spiral as I turn it in my hand, that the spiral is adding on to the actual beads. I'm going to continue to do this for a good 2.5 to 3 inches as Anna did, and then we'll increase to our next size of bead, which is going to be our 4mm melon. So go ahead and continue this same stitch, adding 1 of your core colors and then your 3 beads, and then sewing in a circle back through the last 3 core colors. Again, about 2 inches, 2 to 3 inches of this, depending on the length that you want to do. And then we'll pick up and I'll show you how we're going to add in the next size of the bead. Now that I've got about 2.5 inches of the 8/0 seed bead, I'm going to increase to the 4mm green swirl melon. To do so, you can see that the 3 beads here kind of take the place of those 3 11/0s and puff out a little bit. Obviously, I'm going to need to make my core a little bit longer. So to start out, we're going to end up putting on 2 of our 11/0 seed beads. And then I'm going to add my 11 in my other color, my melon, and my 11/0 seed bead. This is going to continue to step up just like the staircase of the spiral rope, kind of adding this after the last one. And instead of going back through the last 3, we are going to go back through the last 4. So we're going to go in here and down a row, and I'm going to go through the last 4 11/0s. So I'm going through the first one there, and then adding through the 3. So you can see that's going to kind of pop it there on the side, and it'll stick out to the side. And now again, I'm going to add 1, 2 of my 11/0s. And then I'm going to add my selection of 3 beads, which is that silver lined dark coral, my green swirl melon in the 4mm, and then another silver lined dark coral. Go back and I'm going to sew through 4, which are going to be the 2 that I added previously, as well as the 2 that I just added. And you're always sewing, when I say to sew back through that core bead, you're always sewing back away from that tail or that stopper bead. So there you can see those 2 sitting in there. They're going to sit right after one another. Again, 2 11/0s go on, and then your beads. Push those down a little bit, and then back through 4 of your core beads. 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you were to do a 3mm bead like Anna did, you could also go back through 4, just adding 1 on in as you're going around. And you're going to continue just to build. So I'm building in this version here, pulling and spinning these 4mm all the way around. If you want them to be a little bit tighter, just add 1 11/0 seed bead rather than the 2, but still sew back through 4. So you can see that spiral starting to happen. Make sure as you're building this that you're doing a good job of kind of pushing them down against one another, so that way they stay tight and you don't see a lot of extra thread. So still going in here, I'm building more. 2 of my core color, 1 of my 11s, my melons, and 11. And again, keep in mind, really any count will work, any bead will work, and have fun kind of playing around with its design. Back through 4 beads. And as you continue, you want to make sure as you're sewing back through those 4 core beads that you are pushing that last melon kind of back to the side, so that way you're having that nice kind of stair-stepping effect where the melon is spinning around. And you can see the increase in size right there happening. I'm going to continue to go on. The melons come in 50 or 100 to a bag. If you want to split it up and put 50 on, that's up to you. I'm going to do a whole another about a good 3 inches with these melon beads, adding them into that spiral rope design. I want a large selection of my middle to be the drop. So I want a pretty big area that's a drop. So I actually decided to stop again at 2 inches. So I have 2 inches of my original 8/0. I have 2 inches now of my 4mm beads, and I'm going to start with my drops, which I want to be nice and fluffy and kind of really full. So because I want them to be full, I'm going to go back to that 3 beads. So again, I'm just going to add 1 bead, go in and add my 11/0, and my drop in my 11/0, and then I'm going to sew back through, just like I've been doing, those last 3 beads, the one that I put on, and then as well the one that's the 2 that sit below there. So we're going back to the pattern of 3. The reason we're going back to the pattern of 3 is because it's going to make them sit a little bit closer, but also because the teardrops do have a smaller top, so they're not going to need as much space to kind of spread out. So on goes one of our base color 11s, one of our 11 in the silver lined coral, the drop, and then the silver lined coral. You can use a ton of different things for this. The drops that I'm using are 4x6 millimeter Czech drops, and these are in the turquoise jade color. Putting that on, and you can see how it's going to sit already kind of lined up there and have a nice spiral look to them. You could also change this up for rizzos, for some bigger drops. Anna just used 3 millimeter on the sides and then 4 millimeter as she got to the middle, so you can really kind of change up the look completely. That's what's nice about spiral rope. Much like some of the other standard stitches, you can do it with a variety of different beads and different sizes as well. So again, just like the other ones, you want to make sure that as you're adding this, that the last one, or the one that you're currently adding, like the drop that I'm currently adding, that sits kind of behind the last drop and doesn't separate or go down anywhere further into the design. So kind of put that on, and you can see that nice starting spiral that's starting to happen. And going in then, just continuing on, adding in all my drops. And continuing with my spiral rope. So adding the drops here. You could also add, if you wanted to do a graduation of drops, you could do some 3x4 Miyukis and then some of these 4x6 millimeter Czech as well, because that would get you that graduated look of the drops. So again, add a base color or a core color, your sides, whatever they may be, and then we get those sides to actually go to the outside by, in this case, going back through the last 3 core colors, which is going to include 2 that were already there and 1 that you just put on. Again, coming out of the melons, I added 2 11s to get them to space out a little bit more, and then I went back through 4 beads since they're a little bit of a bigger bead. And you can see now the spiraling effect that's starting to happen, and kind of how you can see that nice angle there. I'm going to continue putting in a lot of drops. So I have a whole bag here. I'm going to add in a lot of those drops to get my middle kind of nice and chunky. And then we'll go back basically to downsizing. So as I had stated, you're going to come to a point where you need more thread. And I'm using 0.006 wildfire beading thread in the white color. I have about 4 feet that I started with. I'm at the end of my thread, and I want to tie more thread on. What I'm going to do is start with my next piece of 4 feet, and I'm going to tie that piece around the existing piece that has the needle on it. I'm then going to pull that knot that I just tied around down next to my spiral rope, give a nice tight pull, and then I'm going to take the 2 thread ends and tie these together. Once, switch hands, tie them together again. At this point, you can take that needle off the other piece if you want. If you want to, you can sew that thread end back into the center, of the spiral rope. I'm going to let these thread ends hang out there, thread my needle, and then again back on to the adding 1 of my core, 3 of my sides. You can see that nice teardrop chunkiness starting to take place with that nice teardrop spiral. And as I work with it, then I'm going to continue to get more of that spiral look and add in all the rest of my drops. So I'm back to the point where I am going to start downgraded. I have about 3.5 to 4 inches, about a 3.5, maybe 4 inches of the drops here, and I'm going to start downgrading back to my melon beads. So to do so, again, we're changing that count one more time. Then we're going into doing 2 of our base color, 111 of the coral, 1 of our melons, 111 of the coral. Go back through then. Turn to making sure that you're going after the last one and back through the last 4 beads. Again, after you go through the last 4 beads, it's that same rotation. What I ended up doing was I counted out the melons. I used 16 of them on one side. So I went ahead and counted out my pile and made a pile here of just 16 of those beads. That way I don't have to count my stitches, and I can just count my beads. That way I know when I'm done and it's time to downgrade yet once again. So again, I'm going to go in, add in my 2 of my core color, then my 1 bead 1 of my beads that are on the side of the rope, and then again let that all drop down next to the spiral rope that's already there, and sew back through the last 4. 2 beads that were already there and the 2 that you just added, and bring it around, making sure that you are stepping up and bringing it to the back side of the one that you just added. Again, if you have the instance where thread starts to show, just push your beads down, and make sure to correct that error so that way they are not showing. I'm going to continue now adding the last of those 14 on, and then I'm going to go in from the adding 2 back down to adding 1 bead and dropping down back to my 8 seed beads. After you add in the last of your melon beads here, it's time to downgrade again back to the 8 seed beads. So you can see the drops here that I have along the middle, then I have those melons, and because I counted out the melons, I have the exact same amount on either side. And now again, time to go back into those seed beads. And when going back into the seed beads, you're going to have gone from using 2 of your core beads in that light bronze to 1. So we're going to do 1 again. And then our middle beads, which again is that silver line 15, and then the 8 and then the 15. And again, back through the last 3 beads. Again, the main thing to realize is that you're adding it to the end of that spiral and progressing up. And once you have that there, make sure to kind of push down along the project, bend that over to the side, and get ready to add more. If you want, you can count the actual center beads, that's 8 seed bead, or you can just kind of hold them up and compare them, making sure that you're getting the correct length and finishing off the design. After I finish off this 3 inches of the 8 seed beads, I'll come back and I'll show you how we're going to actually add the clasp on to the end. So the last thing we need to do is add a clasp for the end once you have your 2 sides matching. And I've taken off the stop bead to start with that first side there that we have the matching in length, and just need to add a little bit more thread and do that side there. But I'm going to show you on the first side how we are going to add the clasp. So we started off with 2 extra of our 11 seed bead. I'm also going to add 1 of my 8 seed beads right after there. I'm going to put a button on one side and a loop on the other side. I have a table cup button here in that Jade Travertine color, so that way it matches. And coming out the back here, I want to add 2 of my 11 in that bronze color, in that core color. And then along the top, I'm going to get that pink color in, so I'm going to add 3 of my pink beads, come down through the other side of the button. And when I'm out the other side of the button, then I'm going to add 2 more of the brass, that light bronze. And once I have those 2 added, I'm going down through the 8 seed bead, and then I'm going to go through those first 3 11 seed beads. That's going to hold that button on right there. And what I'm going to do to reinforce, I want to go through the loop one more time. I'm going to take this down a little bit further, so 2 more 11 seed beads. And once I come out those 2 11 seed beads, I'm going to make sure I don't get any thread twisted there. I'm going to go back through those first original 3 beads along the side. And then instead of going down through those 3 seed beads there, I'm going to go up towards my clasp. So that way I'm not going to see any extra thread. And then I'm going to go up and reinforce that Y, going through the 2 11s, the 8 the 2 11s before the cup button, straight up through the back of the cup button, and out the top of the cup button. Out the top of the cup button, I'm going to go through those 3 11s, which sometimes can be a little bit tricky since you have a little bit of a grade to the cup button. And then down the other side of the table cup button and down through the other side of that Y, so back through those other 2 seed beads. From here, I'm just going to take the thread and needle down into the spiral rope, right down along the core, and pull it out a couple times and knot along the base line. That's going to get me the actual bracelet or the necklace finished. And then on the other side, all I'm going to do is the exact same technique. Instead of coming out of the 8 seed bead here, I'm going to add in that pink color because I want a little bit of the pink along the back. I will add about 30 or 28 to 30 of my 11 seed beads and come back through. Do the same method, going down, coming back up the side, reinforcing that loop, and then tying off to finish off this cool graduated spiral rope necklace. Thanks so much for watching the spiral rope graduated necklace. Remember, this can be done with a variety of beads. If you do need links to purchase the products, they're below me near that like button, and there's links to purchase from PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. But remember, you probably already have some things laying around that you can use with this very versatile pattern. As always, you can like this video as well as subscribe to our regular YouTube videos. That way you get updates when we have fun new patterns, designs, and stitches that we think that would be great for you to learn. As always, thanks so much for watching and enjoy your own spiral rope necklace.